to our first discussion this afternoon. Now, a lot of groups have come up. For the subscribers group earlier today issued stern warning to the Nigerian Communications Commission, demanding the reversal of the 50% tariff hike and more manageable of about 10%. They said they want this by Wednesday, January 29. But the National Association of Telecom Subscribers also, and the Association of Telephone, Cable TV and Internet Subscribers of Nigeria have also voiced their disapproval of the Nigerian Labour Congress's planned protest. They have called on the NLC to focus on its primary role of safeguarding workers' welfare instead of engaging in actions that they believe could prove counterproductive. While both advocacy groups acknowledge the financial strain the tariff hike will impose, especially given the current economic challenges facing the nation, they oppose the NLC's planned protest. Now, seeing them as unhelpful, the tariff increase, which was approved by NCC on Monday, January 20th, is the first adjustment since 2013. Now, it raised the minimum cost of phones from 6 naira 40 kobo to naira 60 kobo per minute, aimed at bridging the gap between rising operational costs and telecom sector revenues. Telecom operators had initially requested for a 100% increase, citing inflation and escalating operating costs. However, the NCC decided on a more moderate 50% hike. Mr. Gbenga Adebayo is the chairman of licensed telecommunications operators of Nigeria, ALTON. He joins me live in our studios to talk more about this. Good afternoon. Should I say Happy New Year? It's good to have you here.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Yeah, I think it's good to start our conversation this way. Finally, 50% hike approved by NCC. Considering the back and forth and all of that, let me first of all say, how are you in this industry generally reacting to this move by NCC? First, before we now get into some specifics.
We are pleased and we are thankful about the consideration for a 50% review, despite that our request was for far higher than 50%. But it's a measure required for industry sustainability. For us to talk about any other thing around the tariff review, the industry itself must be sustainable and must be live and active. So we think that the review that has been approved and the steps that we are now going to take will be first recovery, meaning that we'll begin to recover ourselves from the woods, and then to see how we can then improve on the quality of services, to make services available and affordable to all people of Nigeria. So we think it's a good step, and we think it's a good way to start the year, because given where we were in the previous year, things were really, really going south.
Yeah, I think we need to stay on that. Sustainability. What really was the state of the industry before we got to this point? Because even in my introduction, the last time, that was 2013. That's more than a decade. So how has the industry coped between that time and now, before we now got to this point of this review?
It's been quite difficult, and we didn't fail to say it, that the industry faces the same economic headwinds as other sectors of the economy that has increased prices. If you look at the last 2 or 3 years, there is no sector that has not reviewed their prices. Some by 100%, some by 1,000%, some by 300% and all. Basic costs of sustainable items, even living items, food and drinks have all gone up. Cost of tomato in the market, cost of pepper in the open market, cost of garri in the open market, they have all gone up. Cost of energy has gone up. Price of fuel was sold at a certain rate a year ago. Today we know how much it costs to buy a liter of diesel. Same thing for petrol, same thing for energy. You are even see what has happened in the energy sector. Every attempt to improve on their rate and their prices has led to one form of collapse or the other in the infrastructure. So what we're saying is that it was important for us to remain sustainable so that we can continue to deliver services to the people. This tariff we were charging was not sustainable. So to answer your question, it has been difficult for the industry. And the sector in the last, I'll say 24 months, has actually operated like being on life support, just trying to find a way to keep the light bulbs on so that we can continue to provide services. And it became a point, we came to a point where we can no longer continue unless something is done about our tariff. And so we are pleased about where we are at this time. We're really pleased here.
There's also an argument in some quarters that the telcos or the telecommunications operators can generate funds. Other ways you could generate revenue. I had a chat with one of the leaders of one of these advocacy groups, and he was talking about listings and all of that, that the operators could also use other means, that the 50% might eat deep, considering the economic situation.
No one will invest in a sector that is collapsing. There's no investor that will invest money in a sector that has been said to be making losses and that is going to go out of business. So even for the best of effort, for the best of public relations, people will not invest in a sector where they know that when they invest 160 naira, they can only get back 100 naira. So the issue of sustainability became a major issue, and it became a point that we have to do as a survival mechanism. Without which the industry cannot survive. And we talk about all other reactions that we are getting. It's contingent on one fact, and that's the fact that the industry remains sustainable. If the industry is not sustainable, all other things we are talking about will be an after the fact. And we have seen this kind of thing happen in other sectors, and for both actions and inaction, there are consequences. So for government failing to do something at this time, there are consequences for that, meaning that the industry will collapse. For government doing something, the public will cry for saying that prices have gone up, We are not unmindful about cost of items going up, but the fact remains that we cannot subsidize, we cannot be the subsidy for other sectors. We cannot be the one to whom the pain of people from other sectors will be outsourced to. So the sector cannot cope with that. And so what we have done in the last 24 months basically is to continue to thrive and to thrive on the edges. And we came to a point where without significant adjustment on our tariff, we will go out of business. And, you know, some of us are here long enough to see the last days of NITEL. And that's just how it starts. In the morning, we'll be serviced in the Ikoyi exchange. Then you will hear that Ikoyi exchange has gone down, so people of Suele cannot make calls. You hear that in Abuja, we say one exchange has gone down. Only Matama exchange is working. In Port Harcourt, only Woji exchange is up. The one in my one is down. And that's how you just see it going, and gradually things start going south. But what government has done in this regard will help us. First is to recover ourselves, to improve on services, and to continue to deliver services to the people.
Improved service is what everybody is also talking about. While some are ready to pay, of course, the new rates, but some say, okay, what do we also expect back? We know when electricity tariffs, we have the band A, band B thing, we get 20 hours supply, and when we don't get it, we know that we are paying more and we request for it. So in your case, what should Nigerians be expecting if this, and already, has it been implemented? Have we started paying? I think that we should start.
Not yet. We haven't started implementation. Okay. We now have a moral obligation to the public to invest more on the networks. Okay. And that's the fact. Okay. Part of the complaint we brought to government is that we're unable to invest because the industry is not sustainable. Now with the RIF tariff in place over the next couple of months, it will take time, I must say. Over the next couple of months, we should begin to see improvement in network performance. Because there is no plug and play about it. Even when you throw money at it today, the system ordering takes time, delivery takes time, implementation takes time. But we're going to address the quick wins, and that's one. In the first instance, government has said we should simplify our tariffs. So we are going to have what we call tariff simplification, where there will be more transparency on how people are being billed. That's the first step that we're going to do. We're also going to improve on our communication with the public. Where there are issues of failure or downtime, reasons will be communicated to the public so that people can absorb it better. And on the long run, we are going to do a lot more investment in terms of improving on systems, capability, and deliveries. And we hope that by the time we come to the end of 2025, we should be in a better place in terms of network performance and in terms of network improvement and stability. But it's a journey, and the journey has started. Yep.
So how soon do we expect those charges to start coming up on our phones while we make the calls and all that?
We are doing now the regulatory compliance. There are steps to be taken.
Okay.
You know, we are a highly regulated industry. There are steps to be taken, so members are now following those steps. And we hope that the next couple of days things should take effect. Yeah.
But of course,
but the assurance to the people, which I must emphasize, part
please.
of the problems we are seeing is that our members have not been able to do the right investment in optimizing the networks. What this will do is will enable us to do a lot more investment in terms and optimize network performance. That's the assurance for the public. We're not talking about it for reasons of profit motives. No. We're talking about it for reasons of industry sustainability. And really and truly, there is no one who wants to deploy services that are epileptic. But we are on private sector investment. We're not spending subsidies from government. So we can't afford to deploy services that are not reliable and that are not dependable. So there's no operator that is out there to provide services that are unreliable. But circumstances and situations confront us that make services the way they are at some point in time. Sometimes it is due to system performance. At other times, it is due to external factors that are not within the control of the operators. But we are committed to having a better sector. And that's why we give thanks to government for what they have done. The challenge and the ball is now back in the court of the operators. And we're going to do all that we can to ensure that we deliver best-in-class services.
Sounds really, really good. And, of course, a lot is expected from the industry. Now, you've talked about what Nigerians should expect, of course, moving forward. But let's look at the industry on its own. I was asking that what other challenges, bottlenecks do operators face? Of course, it's not just going to be this. There are other challenges that you face as an industry before now that you also think needs some form of intervention and all of that.
In the first instance, you know, we've spoken about tariff review as part of the industry sustainability. Because tariff is just one of the factors and problems that we face as an industry. We have issue of vandalization of our infrastructure. We have issue of damage to fibers. We have issue of vandalization of telecom sites. And we also have issue of security of our personnel. You may have read in the news about 2 weeks ago where some workers who work for one of our members got attacked in the northeast, and unfortunately we lost some of them. It's part of the problems that we face. Issue of damage to infrastructure, particularly by those who work for government. A lot of road constructions are going on, and as these road works are being done, there is damage to significant damage to fiber infrastructure. We also have issue of stealing. People are attacking sites because of the high cost of diesel. Diesel has become a very attractive commodity to people. So where you have sites in remote places, they are very vulnerable to people. People go there to vandalize sites and to steal diesel. We also have issue of vandalization of our backup systems, where because again of the state of our public energy supply, home inverters have become very attractive, and the batteries that are used on our site are easily vandalized, stolen, and sold to the open market and end up in people's homes. So we have all of these problems. And so in looking at the industry sustainability, we are talking about its price. Tariff is one, but there are also a different layer of problems that has to be addressed. And those are things that we've taken to the doorstep of government. And we are grateful that, one, on tariff, we now have some review. On issue of vandalization and our exposure, we also have the Critical National Infrastructure, Information Infrastructure Bill that has been gazetted into law. And that instrument we expect will protect our infrastructure. And so we are hopeful as an industry that 2025 will actually be a better year. First, with the tariff review that we now have, and second is with the CNI that has now been gazetted into law. With those in place and the support of all the stakeholders, we should have a better industry. We are not unaware that we are the infrastructure of infrastructures. So we do have obligation not just for telecom subscribers, also for other sectors that are dependent on telecom services. Yeah. And so when we talk about industry sustainability, particularly sustainability of our sector, we're also talking about ability to provide services for other subsectors that are dependent on us. I ask you, when did you go to the bank? But you do banking services every day. Yes. This you are doing via some form of communication infrastructure or the other. If our industry is not sustainable, we can't support that sector. Same thing with the aviation. How many times did you go to the airline ticket to go and buy a ticket across the counter? Most likely the time you are ordering that online. For that to happen, that's been supported by our sector in one form or the other. And so when we talk about sustainability of our industry, tariff is just one of the elements that we are talking about. And we're doing so for greater good. Because if we fail, other sectors dependent on us will fail. And we can't afford that to happen. We're here today, they're listening to us all around the world. It's some means of communication or the other on our infrastructure. And so this infrastructure has become very critical to the economy that if we don't do it right, the consequence of both actions and inactions will be severe. And that's why it's important to do what we are doing at this time. But assurance to the public is that we are here for the long term. And as private investors and as committed Nigerians, we are willing to do what is right for the betterment of the society and the economy.
Almost finally, the USSD thing, there was also something around that, the banks owing the telcos, right? I think it was above 200 billion naira.
At some point it was 250 billion naira.
250 billion naira. Yeah. I have not heard anything in regards to that. What's the update?
We also must thank the NCC, our regulator, and the CBN, the new management of CBN. We now have the intervention, and in some ways the problem is now being addressed.
Wow.
And so we do not have the kind of escalation we had months ago. And that's why it hasn't been so much in the media. So we're making some progress in that regard. And you see, when we add all this together, we think that we'll have a better sector. And we want to assure the public that we are committed to delivering best-in-class service. I think in the next couple of months, we will see better communication services in the country than we have seen in many years.
Yes. And I also look at rates around some African countries, really. If you look at our rates, really, with what we have now, is it still fair compared to what we have in
we are one of the cheapest.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And I say so because the average man on the street will say to you, we are paying here, we are paying here. But if you look at all the other extraneous socio-economic factors, compared with what is charged in other countries, we are cheaper than most other countries. Of course, if you come to issue of minimum wage, you could say relative to minimum wage, we are high. But in terms of international statistics and data, we offer one of the best and the cheapest services across the sub-region today.
Yeah. Finally, from your point of view, what would be or what is the future of the telecommunications industry
very
in
bright,
Nigeria?
Very bright, very bright. I say so because we've come to a point where we are the driving infrastructure for many other sectors. We are proud and happy about the responsibility and obligation that we have to the public. And so as an industry, we are well committed, not just to contributing to the greater good of society, we're also committed to supporting the agenda of government in taking the country to where we want to be.
Interesting stuff. Mr. Gbenga Adebayo, pleasure really having you start the week with us on Business Nigeria. He is the chairman of the Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria, ALTON. Thank you for coming into our studio.
Thank you for
really
having
appreciate
me.
this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, let's